I think now the next person we're recognizing. You are not recognized, Mr. Ivey.
Well,
you are
I'm
not
sorry, but if
you are not recognized.
you're not following the rules that we voted on and accepted,
the ranking member is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To all our panelists, thank you for being here today, particularly in the threat environment that we face. Director Wray, you state in your report that the threats we face as a nation have never been greater, and I agree completely with that. Secretary Mayorkas, you also talk about the threats in your report where you say terrorist threats in the United States remained heightened. Hamas attacks on Israel, along with other events, have sharpened the focus of potential attacks. And you go on later to say the increased prospects for violence, and you talk about the increased prospect for violence in the United States. And so at a time in which we face increased threats domestically, where we see internationally events continue to seem to spiral out of control, I want to talk specifically about the events that are transpiring along our southwest border. Mr. Secretary Mayorkas, I have behind me a chart that has the encounters of CBP. This was taken off of the CBP website, and just kind of want to walk through some of the information contained there. Based upon the research that I've done, it appears since the president took office, since you became the chairman of Homeland Security, that there's been roughly 7.4 million encounters along our southwest border. If you were to put all those people in one geographic area, that would represent the 7th largest state in the United States, between Arizona and Tennessee. We see that the last month prior to you taking office, that there were 95,000 encounters along the southwest border. We see that the numbers reported here by your department, September of 23, the last reporting numbers, show that that number has spiked now to 341%, an increase of almost 250%. We know that as part of the problem, the president appointed the vice president to be the border czar, to help try to stop the flow of illegal immigration from Mexico and Central America. That appointment was made in March of 21. In March of 21, the end of the month, there was reported 192 encounters. Now we know again the number of encounters are over 341,000. And so under her watch as border czar, we see that the increase is 75%. And so the numbers have grown exponentially under your and the vice president's leadership. One of my questions to you is, do you look at the daily encounter numbers that are put out by your department? Is that something, a statistic that you look at on a regular basis?
Vice Chairman Guest, it is, in fact, and the numbers about which you speak are reflective not only of a challenge at our southwest border, but rather a challenge of migration throughout our entire hemisphere.
And I understand that. And so you do look at the numbers. You do look at the daily reporting numbers. And want to harken back to an interview in 2019, at that time with former Secretary of Homeland Security, Jay Johnson, during the Trump administration, as we were seeing 4,000 immigrants a day coming across the border. At that time, the former Director of Homeland Security, in an interview with MSNBC, said that, and he said, "My staff would tell you that if the number of daily apprehensions was under 1,000 the day before, that was a relative good number. And if it was above 1,000, it was a relative bad number, and I was going to be in a bad mood that day." He also went on to say on Thursday, and again, this was in March of 2019 when Donald Trump was president, there were 4,000 apprehensions. I know that if 1,000 overwhelms the system, I can't begin to imagine what 4,000 a day truly looks like. We are in a crisis. And so my question to you, if Secretary Johnson said 1,000 immigrants a day when he was in the position that you sent, if that was a bad day, and that 4,000 a day was a crisis, what is a bad day for you, Secretary Mayorkas? Because we see now that the numbers have exploded. They're no longer 1,000 a day. They're not even 4,000 a day when this article was written. They're over 11,000 a day. And so in the last 20 seconds, what number to you represents a bad day when we see the number of apprehensions increase dramatically. So I'll give you the remainder of my time to answer the question, and I'll yield back.
Vice Chairman Guest, we do not minimize the significance of the challenge at the southwest border, and we are intensely focused on it.
Is there a number? Would you like to give a number? I asked for a number. That was my question. What number to you represents a bad day? And are you refusing to answer the question?
Vice Chairman Guest, as I said, we do not minimize the significance of the challenge at the southwest border.
That wasn't my question, Mr. Mayorkas. I asked a simple question. Give me a number. And you're filibustering, and you're refusing to answer the question. What is that number?
I have answered your question.
No, you haven't, Mr. Mayorkas. You've not answered the question.
I can do hand signals at this point, right?
Mr. Ivey, if you let him answer the question, or maybe if you would like to answer for him, because clearly he does not intend to answer my question.
I think it's,
Is it not a fair question?
I'm just saying you're over your time, that's all.
We don't need any more points about over the time, okay? As I just sent to you, I think it was just last week, I let Mr. Correa vote after we had gavelled out. I am gracious here, and I'll be gracious to both sides of the aisle.
And Mr. Chairman,
I don't want any more interruptions about time being expired, please. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask you to direct the witness to answer the question.
Do you have a number?
I have answered it to the best of my ability, Mr. Chairman.
Clearly. I now recognize
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Carter.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Point of order?
And I'm just asking, are you basically suspending that rule, or what's?
Look, I have since the beginning, and this is the last time I'm going to answer this question today, Mr. Ivey, allowed people to continue a question train of thought that extends outside their time. I've done that on both sides of the aisle, and I am not going to articulate or waste any more of these gentlemen and this gentlelady's time defining the policy as I've executed it since the beginning of my chairmanship.
Well,
I think now the next person we're recognizing, you are not recognized, Mr. Ivey.
Well,
you are
I'm
not
sorry, but if
you are not recognized.
You're not following the rules that we voted on and accepted.
The ranking member is
at the beginning.
recognized.
Mr. Chairman, we adopted a set of rules, and I try not to get involved.
Yeah,
I have to
go ahead.
explain my point of order.
Go ahead.
And the rules clearly specify everything that's being raised.
I have never once, Mr. Ranking Member, heard.
I have not completed.
Finish your thought.
Thank you. So I'm saying that we adopted the rules on how we conduct business. And anytime a member raises the question, it's consistent with the rules. Now, if that becomes a problem, then I think we have to modify our rules, because that's how we operate. That's what Congresses are required to do. That's what committees are required to do. And for people to ignore the rules is inconsistent with the rule. So I'm just saying to you, follow the rules that we adopted.
Yeah, we're going to continue the policy as I have been doing it since I've been the chairman. Okay, if you're in the midst of a thought, we're going to let you go past your time. And number two, I haven't heard anyone raise an issue on the left when I've allowed people on the left to go over time. Not once, Mr. Ivey, have you said when one of your members has gone over 5 minutes, the person's time is up. Fascinating to me that you're only doing it when it's on this side of the aisle.
If I might have a chance to be heard.
Yes.
All I'm saying is that under the rules, we have a right to raise the point of order when somebody goes over the time. You've used your discretion to permit additional questioning if you want to, but to say I can never raise a point of order that's consistent with the rules doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's just a clear violation of the rules that were adopted. And by the way, the rules were adopted, I don't think they were adopted unanimously. There was a Republican decision to adopt these rules. So these are your rules.
No doubt about it. But the point I'm making is it's intriguing to me that we're consuming this time over this issue while I've never once heard you raise the issue when I've allowed Ms. Jackson Lee to go 2 minutes over.
I've never objected.
But today it's an issue in the midst of a very important hearing.
Anybody can raise a point of order.
You're absolutely correct.
I'm not blocking anyone from doing that, but I think I have the right, and I request the right to preserve that, to raise the point of order when there's an obvious.
It's an excellent point. Now, can we move on?